Hi, I'm Andrew Wasson. Thanks for joining me for my weekly guitar blog. It's March 20th, 2016, and this week we're going to do a lesson on Dorian Mode, the sharp 6 minor scale. And this week's question was sent in from Borys. He's out in Grand Junction, Colorado, and he wrote in with this email. In one of the guitar discussion forums I visit, there was a topic put up on the Dorian Mode being called the sharp 6 minor scale. I've never heard of this before. If I do a Google search on this scale, nothing relating to Dorian comes up. Could you make a quick lesson on why the Dorian Mode might be called the sharp 6 minor? If you could, please include a lick and maybe a progression too. From Borys in Grand Junction, Colorado, USA. Okay, thanks a lot for writing in, Borys. The Dorian Mode, and really all the modes, can be viewed in two ways. They can be seen in relationship to the major scale that they come from. Like if you have a G major scale, that'll give you an A Dorian mode. It's all the same notes, but if you want A Dorian from a G major, you just begin on the root of A. Or, they can be looked at in a parallel manner to the scale of the same tonic and the same tonality. We have basic tonalities like the natural minor scale and the basic major scale. A mode like, let's say, Dorian is going to fit into the minor tonality, so you'd be comparing, let's say, an A natural minor scale to the same root of Dorian mode, so A Dorian mode. Once a musician understands both these perspectives, they can apply the mode in the way that they would best prefer. In this lesson, what I'm going to do is break down these two ideas theoretically, plus I'll demonstrate a Dorian mode single string melody, and I'll play through a set of chord changes that promotes the Dorian mode sound. All right, the first step that we're going to take with our music theory explanation of the sharp 6 minor term being referred to into the respective Dorian mode is we're going to look at the idea of relative scale concepts. Now, what we're going to do here is we're going to take these two guitar fingerboard ideas here, and we're going to think of them being at the 5th fret of the fingerboard. So with this being the 5th fret, we're looking at this tone here on the 4th string as being a G, and you can see we have those circle dots. That's the root, that's the octave. And then over here with this A Dorian mode layout, which is the second mode of G major scale, A is the second tone of G major scale, and we're looking at those A tones now as our focal tones. This is the relative principle. You can tell the scale patterns themselves are exactly the same. So the layout, the tones on the neck, everything's the same look, the geometry is the same, but we've isolated different notes, in this case the G tone here and then the A tones here with their upper octaves as our focal tones. Now this affects the way that we look at the scale degrees. Now of course, if you're familiar with the scale degrees for major scale, it's just all neutral numbers, no sharps, no flats. But the Dorian mode, when you begin aligning the stepwise degrees, we wind up with this tone here being the minor third off of that degree. We do have a major 6, and we also have a flat 7 tone. You can see here we have this whole step span from the octave there to that 7th degree. When you're looking at a major scale, we do not have that. That's the major 7th degree there. Also, from the major scale perspective, the 3rd tone is basically not going to be the distance of what it is in a minor flavor, where we have this kind of one string over a whole step back, where here it's one string over a half step back. So this is the thing, is you change which note is going to be your tonic note or your key note, your naming note, and it starts affecting all the other intervals. So this brings us to the concept of what's happening with the scale degrees. Now this relative layout a lot of times confuses new players, or players that are new to music theory and new to fretboard theory. So what we're going to do next is we're going to flip over to another diagram that takes a look at things in a little bit different way. It's called the parallel relationship. Let's look at that. Flipping over to the world of parallel relationships, I think, is going to give you a little bit clearer understanding of exactly what's going on with this mode, why we call it the major 6 or the raised 6th idea within the Dorian and so forth. Now, these are still supposed to be looked at in terms of being on the guitar fingerboard at the 5th fret. And here, though, when you look at the two diagrams, they both share the parallel root of A. That's why we call it the parallel comparison. So we have the A octave pattern layouts for both of these at the 5th fret of the guitar fingerboard. And the other thing I did was I highlighted the 6th degree as a green looking dot on the guitar fingerboard there. So let's go over this a little bit. Now you can tell at the look of the natural minor scale, the basic minor scale we have in music, we do have a lowered 6th degree as a regular part of that scale's layout. We have our root, major second, minor third, perfect fourth, perfect fifth. We have the minor 6th or lowered 6th, and then of course the lowered 7th degree with a relationship back to the octave there. So that gives us our layout of our scale pattern, and this is, of course, important when we're going to use this scale or we're going to build chord progressions or melodies with it. We have to understand the scale degrees and the application of that scale's tones. But when we get over here now to the Dorian mode, we can clearly see that the 6th degree has gone up. It's been raised. We no longer have it there in that minor 6th position that we used to have it. Now it's been moved over to the next string, but it essentially went up to be in that location. It's a little bit out of the fingering reach, so that's why it's been relocated to the next string over. But same note, unison note. You can maybe clearly see it here where we had the minor 6 occurring on that second string, and then we're just going to bring it up to there, of course, as you can tell in this pattern, to be up at the raised 6th position. So the Dorian mode, you can tell when you compare it to the natural minor scale, it has that raised 6th, and that's why you were seeing this in discussion forums and maybe somebody discussing the raised 6th in terms of the minor scales tones and having this comparison as parallel between the two roots being the same. It really clearly helps identify what the concept of that really is. Now, this is important information because I think the parallel comparison, the theoretical look in this sense, is something that a new student to modes can latch onto a little bit better. And if you're doing, just as a sidebar thing, if you're doing major scale, you would just use the basic major scale. And if you're doing minor, as you can see here, we're doing the natural minor scale as our sort of base scale that we're going to compare modes to. So if you have major modes like Lydian, Mixolydian, you would be comparing the parallel root aspects to the basic major scale. In the case of any of the minor modes like Dorian mode, Phrygian mode, Locrian, you're going to be comparing them to the natural minor scale to understand this parallel concept. So what we're going to do next, now that you understand the shifting around of the tones and this whole element of why we're referring it to being a sharp 6 or major 6 with respect to the scales layout and so forth, now that you understand this information, our next move is I want to go to the live in the studio and play you a melody, play you a chord progression riff, and show you how you can utilize this type of information to make up music in your playing, and whether you're going to be composing with it or you're just going to be using it for some improvisation. Now at least you understand the target tones and the importance of them. So let's head live to the studio and put this information to use. Well, guitar fingerboard patterns might make for a good study of how the intervals of the scales and modes form different geometrical shapes on the neck, but when it comes to actually making music with a specific scale, we need to focus on the color tones that are relevant. So that would be the sharp 6 tone, and the tonality plays a role as well. So the tonality is minor, and that has to do directly with Dorian, of course. Now, this is going to end up influencing how we go about producing all of our musical ideas here. And in my first example, I'm going to demonstrate all this using D Dorian mode. So I'm using Dorian mode sound, and that's going to focus in on the measures, especially toward the raised 6th tone, which is going to be a B natural. So I'm going to really try and bring that tone out in the melody line, stressing the importance again of that sharp 6. And, I'm really trying to break through the color of minor as well. So, against that D minor chord, that's going to be the tonic of the D Dorian mode sound, I'm going to be targeting into some minor thirds. That's going to be F natural tones. That's an important one as well. So first of all, what I want to do is just play through this melody, give you a chance to understand how it goes. Here it is. All right, so that's the melody, and if we break it down, I'm kind of coming right away off of a B there. Just really targeting that sound. It's giving me the impression against that D minor chord, kind of like of a minor 6 chord. The 6 is major against that D, but That's what we have in a minor 6 chord, is a major 6 interval. What's making it minor is the F, the minor third. So that's what happens right out of the beginning there, and then we're going down the scale a little bit, targeting into a D, and that's the 5th of our G major chord, because that's the chord we're going to be using to highlight things in the background there for the harmony. Then after that, what's happening is we're going back around, kind of targeting into the minor third of the D minor chord. But we do have this nice shift that happens with the quick hammer on the 4th string. We're kind of having that B, which is the sharp 6, hammering on into the C tone. And then we're moving up to a D, which is kind of a unique sound on a D minor chord, you know, coming up into the G there, because it's winding up being like a 4th. You know, it's kind of giving you the impression maybe a little bit of a minor 11. Kind of an interesting sound against that. So that's that G tone. And then to wrap things up, which is going to be taking us back on that G major chord again, we just got some highlight ideas that we're doing here, kind of a pentatonic idea. But I'm dropping down into the B tone again, so the sharp 6 tone again. So I'm really sort of forcing that. And that's a really nice tone to have on the G major chord, because that's the G major's major 3rd degree, B natural. So that lick's going, and then back around to the D. So the D is great as well, because the D is the 5th of the G chord, and it's the root, obviously, of the root chord D minor. So what I want to do next here is just demonstrate the sounds of having the D minor and the G major chords in the background, and how they influence that unique raised 6 tone of B natural. So what I'm going to do is, I've got those chord changes in the loop pedal, and I'm going to fire that up and just play this melody again with the looper covering the chords in the background. Okay, here we go. So as you can tell, the chords really bring out, you know, all the essence of what's happening with that Dorian scale. And the chord progression is simple. I mean, there's really nothing much to that chord progression. It's a D minor chord going to a G major. You know, there's not a lot going on with that. Standard triads, you know, no fancy chords, you know, there's no sevenths, there's no extensions or anything. So what I'm going to do is just play that again and take this first half of the lesson out, and then what we're going to do next is come back and check out some chord progression riffs that we can work on in Dorian mode. The next example that I have will focus on the way that we can use the unique raised 6 tone of Dorian. In D Dorian, that's going to be the B natural tone, and I've got a chord progression here built out of D Dorian to demonstrate this. So I'll have a rock riff going on in D Dorian. The main focus is going to be, of course, that raised 6 B tone throughout the riff in order to anchor the effect of our D Dorian mode's color. So first of all, what I'd like to do is just play this riff for you, giving you a really good idea how this thing sounds. All right, so I've gone and worked in the relationship of that B tone into this riff all over the place here. I've come up with a way to really insert that B into each measure of the progression. In measures 1 and 2, I've placed the B into a small 2-note chord, double stop idea that happens there. I'm starting off D with 2 power chords, and then I'm moving over to the 3rd and 4th frets. So I'm getting the F tone, which is the minor 3rd color, off that D, and I'm also popping in a B natural, and then I'm just moving up a half step to turn that, you know, F diminished sound into just an F power chord. Then I'm going to sort of do a follow-up of that off of a C chord. Same idea with the double stops on top. Then I'm going to go back to the D chord again. I'm going to come off of a B tone now and do a little passage of the scale tones. Then I'm going to come back to the F, have a quick punch on that. And then I'm going to go to a bigger G chord where I've got the low G. I'm kind of blocking out the sound of the 5th string here with the underside of my middle finger, and then I've got open 4th, open 3rd G, and I've got the open 2nd string B. So I've got all those tones in there. That's how it all comes together. So basically, the end result is a chord progression that's really anchored in that Dorian mode, because the unique color tone, that sharp 6, the B natural tone, is found in every measure of the progression, and really pushes through that Dorian mode idea. So what I'm going to do here is just play this progression out for you, give you another chance to hear it run down a couple of times, and that's basically the end of the lesson plan. So between the music theory elements that we covered, between the ideas that we tried to get across with the melodic side, single tone melody side, and now, using chord progression ideas where you're getting a chance to hear how that sharp 6 tone gets injected through chord progressions to push the Dorian mode sound. I think from this point, you should be able to go off on your own and maybe, start writing some riffs, some simple melodies, take into consideration some of the ideas that we've been discussing here. And over time, it's just going to grow and become more and more involved, and you'll come up with better and better riffs, and the use of Dorian will become very natural for you in time. So here we go. I'll just play this riff out that I wrote for you. Well, now that we've run through the concepts behind the Dorian mode and the importance of its raised 6th scale degree, you should have a much better time understanding the unique color of how Dorian can influence your music differently, and you should also have a better grasp now of the music theory for Dorian's application. And hopefully, you can now go out and just create melodies and chord progressions that tie into the unique sound of the mode. Dorian is a widely used scale that's applied in a lot of different styles of music. So now that you're aware of its unique sharp 6 degree, you can begin testing its use in your own music as well. Anyway, that's about all the time that I have for today. As always, I want to say thanks for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, and if at all possible, maybe consider a donation to help fund the Guitar Lessons project here. Every little bit helps, and I sure appreciate everyone's support on the channel so far. Otherwise, have yourself a really great week, and I will catch up with you next time. Bye for now. The Music Reading Phase 1 ebook has over 30 pages of comprehensive project lessons covering the entire 5th reading position on the guitar. Music reading charts and drills will work to help students memorize the placement of the 5th position notes, including important sharp and flat tones. Several original and classic pieces of sheet music will help students to gain a solid understanding for this region of the neck. Rhythm studies, duration examples, plus song and location drills along with 19 MP3 audio tracks makes this one of the best music reading courses available online. Music Reading Phase 1 is available for instant download in the View Our Products area at creativeguitarstudio.com.